Railways and tombs. Can you name a more iconic duo? Well, Jelly and Custard, Simon and Garfunkel, Borsig and Selenium, obviously, but apart from those. Railways in the 19th century had this nasty habit of ploughing through anything in their way. They took the idea that you can't stand in the way of progress very literally, and it didn't matter how ancient or sacred a site was. For instance, when the York and North Midland Railway wanted to build a station in York, they felt the need to punch a hole in the Roman walls so as to run a railway through them. This was against the advice of Robert Stephenson, their engineer, and they ended up having to relocate outside the walls anyway, so that was a pointless act of vandalism. When the Midland Railway came to London, they ran straight through Old St Pancras churchyard with a scandalous disregard for the dead, bodies being literally scattered about by the navvies. And it will come as no surprise whatsoever to learn that the Underground encountered its share of tombs. Now, the tale of an underground line that ran into a plague pit or was diverted to avoid one is a myth, though there were some near misses. It was during the construction of what we now call the Circle Line that they encountered a Roman tomb at Tower Hill. Tower Hill represents a corner of the old Roman city, and in fact this is one of the best places to see the remains of the city walls. An awful lot of this was dug up during the Second World War, and therein lies a tale. The tale actually begins in 1887. The 1880s had been a bit of a crazy time for the Underground, or at least for the Circle Line bit of it. The last section of the Circle Line was at Tower Hill, and the whole thing had been rather rushed. You see, construction of the Circle Line, or Inner Circle as it used to be known, was a reluctant collaboration between the District and Metropolitan Railways. Those two companies did not get on at all, partly due to a falling out in the 1860s over money, but mostly because they were chaired by two men who hated each other's guts. In the early 1870s, Edward Watkin had taken over the Metropolitan, and James Stats Forbes had been put in charge of the District. Watkin spent most of the next decade making it as difficult as possible for the district to raise money to get their section of the circle completed. By the early 1880s, just about everyone except Watkin was sick of the situation. Businessmen and politicians pressured the underground lines to sort themselves out. Shareholders of the Metropolitan demanded to know what Watkin thought he was doing. So Watkin agreed to play nice, but not before he rushed the construction of a new section of railway from Aldgate to Tower Hill. At Tower Hill they built a new station called Tower of London, which opened on the 25th of September 1882. This was a very basic station and wasn't part of the original plan. Basically it was built to spite the District Railway while they got their final section built. So Watkin could thumb his nose at Forbes and say, "Ha ha, we're making money over here while you're literally grubbing in the dirt." In 1884, the district finally got to Tower Hill, and Tower of London station was abandoned in favour of the district station at Mark Lane. But because everything had been done in such an all-fired rush, there was a lot of construction to be carried out after the fact. And it was while digging under the Roman walls, because railways did that sort of thing, remember, that they came across part of the tomb of a gentleman named Classicianus. This ended up in the British Museum, so I paid a visit. Now, the British Museum has become controversial in the decades since due to the perception that it robs other nations of their treasures. What's less well known is that many of those treasures were actually left by tourists who died while trying to find the Roman Britain Gallery. This horn may have been used in a futile attempt to summon a curator. Anyway, I headed over there, pausing to look at the Sutton Hoo helmet and the treasures of the tomb of Noggin the Nog, before discovering that the Roman Britain Gallery was closed. So that was a waste of time, wasn't it? Here's a replica of the tombstone. So who was Classicianus? Well, Gaius Julius Alpinus Classicianus was actually the procurator of Britain. The procurator was pretty important, not quite the man in charge of the province, but the man in charge of the money. The governor was the one who ran things from a civil and military perspective, but the procurator was in charge of collecting taxes, paying imperial officials, and generally ensuring that money flowed smoothly between Rome and their province. In AD 60 or 61, Queen Boudica of the Iceni led a revolt of native tribes against the Roman occupiers and burned Colchester, St Albans, and London to the ground. Classicianus expressed the opinion to Emperor Nero that maybe it was a bad idea to treat the native tribes like scum, and, following an inquiry, Nero agreed. Publius Petronius Turpilianus was appointed the new governor, and Classicianus as procurator. His job would not have been easy. Not only did he have to physically repair the damage to the cities of Britannia, but to mend financial relations with the natives. Classicianus was fully aware that one of the major causes of the revolt was the Roman government deliberately impoverishing the native tribes by reclaiming financial gifts given to local chiefs and forcing loans upon them and then recalling them. Unfortunately, whatever his achievements, his promotion was short-lived, as he died in AD 65. We don't know much about Classicianus. Much of what we know comes from either the historian Tacitus or his tombstone. We know from the latter that he was of the Fabian tribe, that his father was named Gaius, that his wife was Julia Pacata Indiana, and his father-in-law was named Indus. His tomb did not lie undisturbed, but we can't just blame the underground for that. In 1937, more digging was underway for an electrical substation for the tube, and they discovered another part of the tombstone. It had, at some point in the intervening centuries, been broken, and this part had been reused as part of a wall. So it too was sent to the British Museum, and now you can see them for yourself, when the gallery is not closed. Tower of London Station was abandoned at track level, and the street-level building was used as a tea warehouse. When it was demolished in 1941, this section of old walls was revealed to the public view, and kept that way. In fact, more of the walls were uncovered. Evidently attitudes to Roman ruins had changed a lot. In 1961, a new station was built on the site of the old one. You would know it as Tower Hill. And if you know where to look, you can still see part of the old Roman wall at platform level. These days, railway construction has to be carried out with a lot more care for history. Full archaeological surveys are carried out in the path of planned lines, and some remarkable sites have been discovered. The Jubilee Line extension ran into the Crossbones Cemetery, which is now a garden of remembrance in Southwark. The Edinburgh tram encountered an entire Bronze Age village that no one knew was there. Crossrail's digs found a plague pit under Charterhouse Square that answered many of our questions about the Black Death. Even now, surveys are being carried out on the route of High Speed 2. It slows things down, for sure, but it enriches our knowledge of history. And you can't put a price on that. Well, unless you're actually paying for the railway, I suppose. Well, I hope you enjoyed this classically educational tale from the tube. If so, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I would like, as always, to thank my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the procurator to my governor. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.